Most people use zebras just to avoid mistakes, and I promise you, after this video, you will use zebras for much more. What if they could guide your viewer's eye and shape how your photo feels? In this video, I'll show you how to use zebras to do exactly that, to control attention, to create emotion, and to decide what truly matters in the frame. Alright guys, so what zebras actually do? I'll go over the technical stuff like zebra settings by the end of this video. But first, let's talk about something more important. How to guide your audience's eye. Before you understand what they're measuring, you need to understand why you're using them in the first place. So what do zebras actually do? Zebras are just a visual warning. They tell you when the part of your frame has crossed a certain brightness level. That's it. They don't judge your image. They don't tell you what's right. They just blink when the tones go over your set limit. Whether it's your subject, the sky, the sand, the snow, or the background. But here's the magic. Once you understand that, you will decide exactly where you want those stripes to appear and where you don't. And that is how you control your attention. Let me show you the two ways I use zebras. One to make the subject the brightest in the frame, and the other one to make the subject the darkest by blowing out the surroundings. Both the techniques are very simple, but they can totally change how your photographs feel. Technique number 1. Make the subject the brightest in the frame. Alright guys, this way to make the subject the brightest in the frame is very simple, but it's so powerful. In this method, I make sure that my subject is the brightest part in the frame, but without losing any details. Here are some examples. For example, when I'm photographing a white horse, I'll raise the exposure until the zebra stripes appear only on the horse's face and nowhere else. I'll move around, I'll recompose to make sure that the zebras are landing only on the horse's face. If they don't, I have lost control, because getting it right only on the subject's face is very important. If zebras are flashing on the background or anywhere else on my frame, I have lost control. Now the subject has competition and your story is losing focus. So now I need you guys to remember, once the zebras show up on the face and the face only, then I dial back 1 or 2 clicks just to make sure that the zebras disappear. Not a lot, just 1 click or 2 at the most. That locks in maximum brightness on the subject, and it sits right at the edge of exposure, but it's full of texture and life. And here is why that matters. In photography, eyes go to the brightest part in the frame. So when you use zebras this way, you're not only exposing the subject properly, you're also guiding your viewer's eye. You're directing emotion. It's not about being technically perfect. It's about being intentional. But sometimes I want exactly the opposite. Let me show you how I do that when I'm making my subject the darkest in the frame. Technique number 2. Make the subject feel the darkest by blowing out the background. The second way I use zebras is the complete opposite of the first, but it's as intentional as the first one. Here are some of the examples. This time I want my subject to feel darker, not by underexposing it, but overexposing the space around it. Alright, so here is how it works. I raise my exposure until the zebra stripes cover the background. Maybe it's snow, maybe it's sand, maybe it's sky. Whatever is around the subject needs to get the zebra stripes on it. But I make sure the subject is clean. The zebra stripes cannot touch the subject. No zebras on the face, no zebras on the body, no zebras anywhere on the subject, only on the space around it. What that does is it creates separation. Now the background is glowing, maybe even slightly clipped, and the subject feels darker, more grounded, and more defined. And here is the twist: I didn't change anything about the subject's proper exposure. The light around it changed, and that is what makes the difference. I'm letting my surrounding blow out on purpose because the glow around it makes the subject stand out even more. You probably see this in fashion photography or high-key portrait, but it works beautifully in wildlife photography too, especially with white subjects. So now instead of using zebras to protect highlights, I'm using zebras to create mood, to control how my subject feels, not just how it's lit. Zebras don't just help you hold back, they help you push forward. When you want the light to glow and the subject to feel grounded, use zebras. Alright guys, to make this technique work, your zebra settings need to be precise. Let me show you exactly what I do in my camera settings for zebras, so maybe you can mimic exactly the same. I have 3 zebra sets: 100%, 95%, and 90%. So the way I work with it in my brain is 100%, it's too late. At this point, I've already clipped my highlights and I'm not going to be able to recover. Even if I dial back 1 or 2, it's very close for chance. I don't like it, I don't do it. 95%. 95% is my go-to number because it takes you to the edge but not quite. And even if I dial back 1 or 2 clicks, I'm still keeping all my details in my highlights. 90% I use when I'm not sure. There's a lot of movement, the bird is going in and out of clouds, the animal is running all over the place. And at that point, when I need a little bit more comfort zone, a little bit more security, that is when I use the 90%. And then when it hits in my frame at 90%, I'll dial it back 1 click only. So think of it this way: 100% too late, 95% idle, 90% extra protection when you need it. Once you know your numbers, stop reacting and start directing your images. Alright guys, so let's just summarize all of this. I set up my zebras to 95%. That's the line between control and chaos. Bright enough to glow and safe enough to hold details. So whether you are using zebras just to protect the highlights or to shape the mood, remember, they're not just a warning. They are a creative tool. It's not about perfection, it's about intention. And if you want to see exactly how I use all of this in the field, I have something coming up. I have had so many requests from all the audience telling me, hey Ejaz, can you take us from start to finish? Meaning, when the image pops up in my brain, I start doing my research, I go get my shoot together, I do all my 10 rituals, then I go out there on location, photograph, come back, do my retouching, send it to my printer, and then ship it to my client. So I have this coming in, I believe it's going to be a 4-part series, I'm not sure, but it's coming your way. You guys can tune in and watch it here. I'm going to Florida to photograph the royal terns. It's a white bird. I have done my 10 rituals and I've recorded all of that. We're putting it together. Once I'm in Florida, I'm going to record what I do, how I think, my exposures, my this, my that, my ba 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 ba. And in between that, I'm also going to show you what I've done to sell those images before I have gone to my shoot. I hope you use zebras to your advantage and don't let zebras use you. See you guys soon.